Good morning and welcome here to our sophisticated studio in Fort St Andrew. This morning we're going to be looking at doubting Thomas in more detail and what that might mean to us today. In the fickle world of fashion, what was trendy last year is undesirable the next. However, it looks like this year's must-have accessory will be the face mask. Less of a fashion statement, more of a sad necessity. But to cheer us up, these non-medical masks are now being produced in a great variety of materials and designs. Something for everyone, even the most fashion conscious. My mother-in-law has made us some great ones. Thanks, Miriam. Apart from our noses and mouths, there are other things that we can mask. For instance, do you ever mask your feelings? Or are you one of those people whose expressions always show exactly what they're thinking, known as a WYSIWYG? What you see is what you get. I'm married to one of those. Do you know, sometimes Christians try to mask any doubts that we have about any aspects of the Bible or what we're told to believe about God. Why do we hide our doubts? Maybe it feels wrong or unfaithful to query anything about God that we're told. It shouldn't. God's given us free will and active brains to think for ourselves. Otherwise, we're just indoctrinated, just accepting a set of beliefs uncritically. I believe that spending time questioning and exploring our faith and our doubts draws us closer to God. We need to be able to share our thoughts with others too. That's why activities such as Bible study groups are so important. You know, I came to faith in my early 20s after attending the Salvation Army for some time. Initially, I thought everyone there was nice but deluded, which is risky to admit because some of them are now my in-laws. But I stuck it out because they made me feel so welcome and I was curious about God. Eventually, I'm a slow burner, I reached the point where I knew that I believed in God. But I still had some big doubts about some areas of Christianity that were holding me back. One day, the sermon was about doubting Thomas. And I suddenly realised that it was okay to believe in God but still have some doubts. It was a light bulb moment for me. And I gave my life to God there and then. So admittedly, I probably have a soft spot for Thomas. I think that poor guy gets a bad press. For a start, what image do you see when you hear him called Doubting Thomas? I see one of those classic paintings where Thomas is sticking his finger into Jesus' wounds, and it's not overly endearing. But who or what did Thomas doubt? He'd been devoted to Jesus, he believed in him, he was willing to risk his life following him. But maybe he didn't have so much faith in the other disciples. Perhaps it was them he was struggling to believe. Perhaps he thought they were just nice, deluded people when they said they'd seen the risen Lord. I think Thomas was a real WYSIWYG. He didn't mask his thoughts or feelings at all. It was 8 days later that Thomas actually saw Jesus for himself. I wonder what he'd been thinking in the meantime. What would you have done in Thomas's position when the disciples first told him they'd seen Jesus after his death? Would you have doubted them? When Thomas did see Jesus for himself a week later, I wonder if he remembered these earlier words. Unless I see the nail marks in his hands and put my finger where the nails were and put my hand into his side, I will not believe. Jesus obviously knew what Thomas had said and he directed him to do just that. Put your finger here, see my hands, reach out your hand and put it into my side, stop doubting and believe. Jesus made a point of telling Thomas, because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed. What doubts do you struggle with about your faith? Have you talked to God and other Christians about them? If not, why not? For those who are exploring Christianity, what doubts are keeping you from accepting the reality of God? Have you tried talking to a Christian about them? If not, why not? It's better to doubt out loud than to disbelieve in silence. Jesus did not reject Thomas for his doubts, and he won't reject us for ours either. This week is also our Candidates Sunday, when we think about those people who God is calling into full-time ministry in the Salvation Army. I know that when that happened to me, I had many doubts and excuses about why I shouldn't do it. Mainly because I felt inadequate and overwhelmed. But I talked about my doubts. I prayed about my doubts. I recognised my excuses for what they were, and I stepped forward into ministry. That was about 14 years ago, and it's been a real blessing in so many ways. We don't have enough people answering the call of God into ministry at the moment, but I am sure that God is calling many forward. Might that be you? Are your doubts and excuses holding you back? If you'd like to support those who answer the call and go into training, we have included links on our Facebook page for the candidates video and donations. And we can also accept cheques or cash locally. You know, Thomas had doubts, but that didn't stop him from accepting Jesus and playing his part in spreading the word. Let's not let them stop us either, whatever his plans for each of us are. Our closing song encourages us to cast our doubts and fears aside and fully rely on God's promises. Enjoy.